welcome you to your favorite discussion. Today is an honor and privilege for me because I'm receiving somebody that's a mentor, someone that I really look up to. He's a trailblazer. He's a Pan-Africanist and a lover of Africa. We're receiving Honorable Kojo Yankah. Welcome, sir. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you very much. You're also welcome.
Thank you.
I hope that we're going to have a discussion that will benefit many more, both on the continent and in the diaspora.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we are in the diaspora, and we're so privileged to have you here because you're always busy, you're always traveling. First of all, I want to thank you on behalf of our viewers for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us this morning and just give us knowledge.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. So we usually do research on our guests, and we use the famous or the infamous Wikipedia. And what we had when we went on Wikipedia with our team was great. And I want to go through it, and you tell me after this what you think. All right? So the great achievements of Honorable Kojo Yankah. He's a former member of parliament in Ghana. He served as a minister of state in President Gerald Rollins' government. He's a founder and president of the African University College of Communication. He's a former editor of the Daily Graphic, the widest circulation newspaper in Ghana. He was a former chairperson for the Ghana Heritage Conservation Trust. He's a former chairperson of PANAFEST, the Pan-African Historical Theatre Project. He's an author of 10 books. And why we're here today is because we want to speak about the latest published book, which is From Jamestown to Jamestown, Letter to an African Child. What do you think about that?
Well, that's just part of what I've done in life. And, yes, they are welcome. I have been director of the Ghana Institute of Journalism, which trained journalists across Africa for 10 years. I was on radio and television hosting programs on Ghana TV and on GBC for over 1 decade. I produced a TV series, a detective series on Ghana television called Inspector Bediako.
Wow.
I produced a documentary on being a journalist in Ghana, and many more that I don't need to add. But
so we have to review the Wikipedia information and add.
Not always up to date.
And add some of those. But I'm truly honored, and to me, it's like that young child sitting at the feet of his elder to learn. And I know after this, a lot of young African from the diaspora and around the world will really, really cherish these moments with you. How does it feel, all these achievements, you know? How does it feel looking back into your journey?
Well, it's been life-fulfilling. I believe that the wider your knowledge, the more you also feel confident about yourself, particularly when it's about your own history, and you know that you have firm roots on the ground so that you can also share with other kids and other youth. And that's how I feel, that I'm now in a position to share as much knowledge as possible with the rest of mankind, particularly the youth of Africa.
And one thing that struck me the first time we met in Accra was the humility. Where do you get that strength to stay level-headed and humble after all this greatness that you have achieved and that you're continuing to achieve?
I believe that humility is the source of all wisdom, and you learn more when you're humble. If you're always in the business of knowing everything, you don't learn anything new. So it's always humbling to listen more, to read more, to observe more, and builds your body of knowledge. It helps you to now look at people differently, and it makes you understand why people behave the way they do, and it's a life fulfilling exercise.
And looking back at your journey, the roadblock, the joys, if there was something that you could change, mostly as an elected official in Ghana, to make it differently, what would that be?
I would not add anything. I will not change anything. The experience you have before you go into public office is important, because it guides you to how you should deal with people, how you should take decisions, how you should also accept what other people's opinions are. So I was guided by my earlier experience, as you probably said. I had been a director of Ghana Institute of Journalism for 10 years. I had been editor of the Daily Graphic. I had worked in public organizations as a public relations manager. I had worked even in the government circles as an information officer in the Information Services Department. So I knew how to deal with people. It's not like I just entered, politics to become a member of parliament. And I believe that it's because of the experience I had that my constituency people had the confidence in me, and also the president had the confidence in making me a minister to serve people. So I knew what I was expected to do. And again, going back to the earlier question you asked, you go into public service to serve. And I had that kind of humility before going into public service. I knew that, as you said, not to impose myself on the people. It's when you think that, oh yeah, you are the best guy in the world to have been made a minister, therefore you should impose yourself on people and dictate everything, you make a big mistake.
Yes, sir.
And we are having experiences all over on the continent where people in privileged positions think that, they forget that, one day you go back to the same society.
Mm-hmm.
So you must be prepared to serve. And not serving in the sense that you just become a football to be kicked back, but to have a great understanding of what you're doing, and then wanting to achieve results. After all, why are you serving? You are serving to improve upon conditions that you met before. And I believe that largely I achieved what I wanted to do both in parliament and in government.
We can attest to that. So I've had the privilege to travel to Ghana last year and actually this year, and I saw last year a lot of preparation, towards the commemoration of the Year of Return, and I know the involvement you've had, the great work you've done around this issue of keeping, the memories of our cousins and brothers that departed, during the slave trade. What is your take on this anniversary, 400th year anniversary of the Year of Return?
Okay, let me go back to our independence in 1957. Kwame Nkrumah, before he led the agitation for independence in Ghana, was working with peoples of African descent, at the various Pan-Africanist conferences. And so when he we won independence, he invited into the country some Pan-Africanists like W.B. Du Bois, George Padmore, and Maya Angelou, and a whole host of others. So we saw the coming into Ghana of African Americans and peoples in the diaspora in the early 60s. They came to the universities, and students were trying to adjust and integrate into the system. But significantly, it was in 1992 that one of the senior research fellows of the Institute of African Studies, Mrs. Ifwa Sutherland, who herself is a dramatist, a writer, a theater person, proposed to government that we should host a biennial festival of peoples of African descent, using the tools of arts and culture. The festival was to be called PANAFest, Pan-African Historical Theatre Festival. And so this was accepted. The first one was held in 1992, and then in 1994, I became chair of the publicity committee, and 2 years later I became chairman of this festival. So this festival brought together every season peoples of African descent from all over the world, from America here, from the Caribbean, from South America, from the continent itself, theater people, intellectuals, creative people, artists, even vendors, coming to share experiences on the continent. At the same time, they also went through the slave route, from the north of Ghana to the south, to the Cape Coast and Elmina castles. They passed through the last bath where they had before going to the castles. And then also they had to immerse themselves in Ghanaian culture. There were some that got the opportunity to go to some of the ceremonies where people got new names or were renamed or were remarried, and experiences that will make them not forget their experience in Ghana. So it was a cultural immersion. At the same time, it was a spiritual return. And in fact, in 1997, we had 97, 98, we had some very significant moments when some bodies of descendants of slaves who had been buried were carried from one from the the Caribbean, and one from America. They were brought down to Ghana for reburial. And that significantly was an opportunity for us to say that the doors have been opened. The door of no return has now been opened to be a door of return.
Wow.
So we opened the door formally in 1998 at Emancipation Day and PANAFest. And since then, a lot more people have been coming. And I myself got the opportunity to travel to Jamestown in America as chairman of PANAFest, to be invited to the 375th anniversary of the arrival of the first Africans in America. But this year, 2019, which was marking the 400th anniversary, the President of the Republic decided to officially make it the year of return. That's why he traveled to America, talked to congressmen, talked to a whole host of other people, and then later traveled to the Caribbean to announce that Ghana was declaring the year a year of return. So he just formalized it, and that's why this year has become especially known as Year of Return. And as you can imagine, a lot of PANAFest was still held, a lot of festivities were held a lot of film stars, a lot of artists in the musical artists in the diaspora, all trooped to Ghana. We had Steve Harvey, a lot more people, students, teachers, educators, all flocked into Ghana this year, and they are still going because the commemoration ends in December. And as we are speaking, I'm told that most of the hotels are filled up.
Wow.
And so it continues.
Yeah.
And
so are we still having the festival?
Panfest has already been held.
Okay.
In July
of 2019.
Of 2019.
Okay.
It was held, and it was huge. It was huge. So those who were in Ghana at the time participated in the festival. While others are going on various tours through various tour groups to see what others have already seen in the course of the year.
So here, listening to you, Honorable, it makes me feel proud, and it gives me great joy to know that such an initiative can be, ignited and actually make a trip back. Because we know what is happening now on the continent. Most young people are looking for greener pasture on the other side of the ocean. But having all these opportunities to bring back, our brothers and sisters to the country, what part do you think tourism plays in there? Because it means there should be some type of structure, that when they come, they don't just come to the everyday thing. What do you think? Do you think we're ready, for the overflow? Because this is just the beginning, and I look into the future, and I think there'll be an overflow of people coming back. Do you think we're ready?
The question is, it depends on how we see it. You see, tourism. What is tourism? Tourism is traveling from one end to another. So. But my thinking is that we should not see people going back home as tourists. Tourists, it doesn't give the full spiritual meaning of why they are going back. So people are not looking, and again, even tourists, you don't want to go and see the same skyscrapers you see in New York,
yes,
in Africa. You must be prepared to see Africa as it is. After all, we don't have anything to be shy of. We know that our development would have been much, much, much higher and greater if we had not had colonialism to just rape the continent of everything that we had, to build the countries that we are talking about. So, yes, images and stereotypes have been shown on television, in films, and so on. But you find something very, very different when you get back to Africa, and you see the humanity of the people. You feel that these are people who are living in their natural states. You find more security. You find hospitality. Our people really recognize people, how they value the human factor. It is not something you can find in all these so-called modern areas. Yes, some places telephones are not working the way they should, water is not flowing regularly, you may not get Wi-Fi in every part of the country, but hey, that is experience. That is, if you're talking about tourism, that is what we call experiential tourism. When people go on tours, spend so much money to go into forests, they're not expecting the forests to have all the facilities that they enjoy in the cities. So that is tourism. But this particular return is more spiritual. It's you want to now relate, particularly peoples of African descent. You want to see how they relate, how beautiful it is to go into Africa to see, oh, this one looks like a member of my family. Oh, this one. And until people even open their mouths to talk, Africans think they speak their languages. So they start talking to them in their local languages. How beautiful. So that aspect is more important than the infrastructure that we worry about. Yes, infrastructure we will build. We are still building. Roads are not the best in the world, but you can see, anybody who goes to Africa will see that efforts are being made to modernize the roads and build more schools, build more health facilities, and see the other side of it. But more important, you see the humanistic culture of Africa.
Yes, sir.
You see that these are people who recognize people. And, you find people who will say, oh, in Africa, I drove in a car for 200 miles. No policeman stopped us. Or for that matter, I walked in the night. The security was good, and I enjoyed the hospitality of the people. That is what people bring back. I haven't met in the US, a lot of people have gone to Africa and complaining about infrastructure. Yes, once in a while, yeah, oh, lights went off. Oh, we didn't get the modern toilet facilities and so on. But
water wasn't running.
yeah, that doesn't come before the spiritual connection that they have. And I think that return to Africa should be in that vein.
Yeah.
Even Africans who have lived here for a long time, have been born here, who probably will complain that, oh, I went to my village the same as I left it 2 years ago. Even then, if they spend 1 week, they will enjoy the conviviality more. The kind of freedom that they have when they get back home, you can't get it anywhere in the world.
This is what I'm talking about. This is a lover of Africa, a Pan-Africanist, a proud African. So we'll be back in a few to continue to talk about him and himself and all the great things he's done. Don't move. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back. Welcome back to our discussions. Today, we have the honor to receive His Honorable Kojo Yankah from Ghana, Africa. And we know the passion that you have for communications. We know the passion that you have for journalism. We know the passion that you have for writing, and public relations. And that passion led you to creating a school, a university of communications, the African University College of Communications, AUCC. How did that come about?
Well, it's a follow-up to my own passion of how to communicate Africa. See, we have few journalism institutions on the continent, and I have been director of one for nearly 10 years. And you find that we are still struggling with how to communicate ourselves. We complain that Western media doesn't give a good side of our story. And that anytime they cover Africa, it's only about the negatives. Okay, so how do we turn it around? We don't need to come and beg Western media. That's how they do it. So why don't we also have our own institution to communicate Africa, to tell our story? In the 1990s, democratization was rapid on the continent. And so most of the states' radio and television stations had to compete with private ones. A lot of private ones came on air. And I, particularly in Ghana, know that by 1999, we only had about 12 private radio stations. I foresaw that the way things were going, there would be many more radio, television, newspapers. But the question was, are we prepared? Do we have the men, the manpower to run these stations? So setting up the African University College of Communications, originally as the African Institute of Journalism and Communications, I had in mind that, listen, not only were we going to communicate Africa, we also need to satisfy the manpower needs of the future. And I believe that I've been proved right. Today, there are about 300 private radio stations in Ghana.
Yes, sir.
And there are about 15 or 20 television channels, even more, going on in Ghana. And the same is happening in other parts of Africa. So we need more people trained to handle the media in the same way that we need to whip up our creative arts and improve our professional capabilities in film, in the arts, in all forms of communication. So that is what led me to establish the AUCC. We started with 60 students in 2002. Wow. Now we are 1,500. And the numbers are going up, despite the fact that a lot more universities are now also introducing communication departments
in their curriculum.
In their curriculum. But we are still doing things more differently. As I'm speaking, we have now collaboration with a number of HBCUs, in America, to deepen our knowledge of Africa on the other side. It's not just those on the continent. Even on the continent, as you probably know, we don't know about ourselves. Ghanaians don't know about Cameroon. Ghanaians don't know about Zimbabwe. Ghanaians, we only get our news from third channels.
Yes.
So we need to now know more about ourselves on the continent and also know more about ourselves in the diaspora. So we are giving meaning to the whole idea of a Pan-Africanist approach to learning, and at the same time give opportunity for us to go back to our history and tell the story to our people and to future generations. So,
and you spoke about the partnership with. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what it's going to entail?
For example, AUCC has signed a partnership agreement with Morgan State University, and this entails exchange of staff, students, and some of the Morgan University programs that are not run at AUCC will run them. They have a bachelor's in entrepreneurship, which we are interested in. They have master's programs in global journalism, which we are also interested in. They are very strong in architecture and engineering, which we will also introduce very soon. And we have another collaboration with Delaware State University. They have a Center for Global Africa, and their idea is to engage African students and African universities to get more interested in Pan-Africanism, to get interested in what the African Union is doing, Agenda 2063, so that together we will be building a future for our children, not just based on this is American history, this is African history, but how the diaspora together can move together to help the African Union to advance its mission. We also are completing another collaboration with Livingston College in Salisbury, North Carolina, because We have a very great African born from Ghana called Kojo Yankah. Kojo Yankah of Africa was an educationist. He made a big impact in education in Ghana, and he is an alum of Livingston College in Salisbury. So I visited. We have developed a framework for collaboration, also to honor, Africans like that who are getting lost in history and bring them back to the understanding of the youth. It is important also to recognize that most HBCUs also hosted our former leaders, Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes, yes.
We had Jomo Kenyatta.
Jomo Kenyatta, yeah.
We had Hastings Banda. We had Awolowo of Nigeria. So all these leaders made it here, and therefore also had an impact in some of the universities that they attended.
That brings me back to a question that's burning my lips about us, the youth that leave the continent. What message would you have for us? You just gave an awesome example of that great cohort of great leaders of Africa that went back and made Africa what it is today. And I would like you to give a message to the young Africans to understand. Just give us a message. Let us know, because I feel it's possible to still do it. I feel it's possible to still go back and do it. I want to know what you think about that.
The point is very clear that you are not here only to go back and look for excuses or complaints on the continent, but what you learn here should benefit the continent. People should go back with new ideas. Now we're in technology, we are in cyber security, we are in science, we are in engineering. There are new ways of communicating, we are in social media. Let's go back and the experiences that we get, go and make a difference in the educational system that we have. It is only through that our development can be even. Otherwise, we only go back home and complain. No, complaining is not the idea. You must have ideas to go and change a situation. And that is the message I'll give to the youth. You must be humble enough to accept that that is where they came from. Africa is your home, and I am proud of it. It's because we do not even know that Africa has a pride. Africa, or the African civilization, is the oldest civilization in the world, and that the original human being was black. And we should go back now to learn what was hidden from us. That we are a proud people. It's history. It's history that people or teachers taught us. For example, some of us grew up and were taught that Africa had no history. And we called Africa the Dark Ages of Africa. Those were all concocted to let us feel that we are the forgotten ones. But that is not true. We have learned, for example, that during slavery, there was a special Bible that was used. They called the Slave Bible in the Slave Museum in Washington, D.C., where 14 chapters of the Bible were taken away. No mention of liberation, no mention of freedom, no mention of the revelations. So it's like Africans didn't have any hope. So if all these details are coming out, why don't we learn it to enrich ourselves and feel proud that we have something to relate to, so that Africans don't feel shy that they are blacks. No, Marcus Garvey said it's not a badge of shame, but a badge of honor to be black.
In 1986, you published The Trial of Gerald Rollins. Very, very successful book. And for some people that I spoke to, a little bit, they say some of them feel like it's a little bit controversial. Some will feel like, oh, the truth wasn't really told. What do you think about the trials of Gerald Rollins?
It's a true story. You see, the trial, Gerald Rollins is an enigma. So people see him from different angles. But I tell you that a lot of conditions are going on at the continent that probably need somebody like Rollins to go and shake up the system. People are getting too satisfied with just stealing from the people and just corrupting the morals of the nation. Look at the amount of money some leaders tuck out of the country in foreign banks. I mean, if you get a crazy person, let me put it that way, a crazy person, to go and round all of them up and teach them a lesson, I think the continent will go forward. In the history of Europe, yeah, you had leaders like that. You know, it's sometimes people say, oh, human rights, human rights. I beg your pardon. You know how many people die because people are stealing money? The millions of naira or dollars that we take out of Africa. You can build hospitals and save lives, give education. Why should individuals come and stack millions of dollars in American or Swiss banks? For what? You know, so for me, those are some of the indicators that made Rollins popular in Ghana. Of course, you can say, oh, Ghana, corruption compared to other parts of Africa is nothing. Yes, it's nothing, but it could do a whole lot. You know, so yes, you may not like Rollins, but the point is that he's an enigma. Rollins is still very popular. Let him run around any part of the country. You see the number of people who are chasing him. Recently, he went to the Volta region, and it was like another festival. It was in Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and the students just mobbed him. That is Jerry Rollins. You may hate him, but he's an inspiration to the youth that when something goes wrong in society, some people should be bold enough to stand up.
Stand up, yeah. Stand up. And I think Thomas Sankara, Gaddafi, Gerald Rollins, you know, lately he gave his eulogy at the president of Zimbabwe's funeral, and it was around the world. It was greatly appreciated and accepted. Yeah. So
you know, so he will continue to be popular in our history. Naturally, you know, there are people who definitely were benefiting from the old system, and they won't like him. That's true. I mean, yes. Unfortunately, a few people lost their lives. That is unfortunate. But that is not to deny the role he played in the history of Ghana.
So.
And that's why his name will forever be in the books of Ghana and Africa. That we need bold leaders who will stand up to the very corrupt systems that we are building up on the continent. It won't take us anywhere.
I would have said after the trials of Gerald Rollins, you reached the optimum of your writing career, but you came up in 2019 with this schedule, From Jamestown to Jamestown, Letter to an African Child. I read this book. I could say it was an emotional roller coaster for me reading this book. Being a New Yorker, it was my companion for 3 weeks in the subways when I'm going to work. And first of all, I want to thank you personally for this. And I want to ask every African child out there, and even non-African young person, to get this book. Where did the inspiration come from for you to say, you know what, I'm going to take this bold step and put this out?
I think the inspiration came from a realization that the experience that I've had should be shared with the youth of Africa. I grew up in an environment where we were just coming out of British colonial rule. So Kwame Nkrumah's time, we were singing God Save the Queen without understanding what it meant. But we got our national anthem. and Kwame Nkrumah started putting African countries together with the idea that the independence of Ghana was meaningless unless it was tied up with the liberation of the whole continent, which is true. And looking at the resources that we have on the continent, the fact that colonialism just took everything out of the continent, and we know that certain countries became rich and built their, countries because of what they got out of Africa. And the fact that we are now also making effort to build an African Union or a United States of Africa. The fact that we have also gone through, from my own experience, Panafest, and getting people to come together to realize that, hey, we have an Africa to build. We did Panafest with the theme, the rebirth of African civilization, uniting the African family. So when you talk about the rebirth, what does it mean? Let's go back to the original history of Africa. Let's know where we came from, why we are what we are. And I traced back to all the researches that people have done. Sheikh Anta Diop is a Senegalese. We have a number of African Americans. There are some Arabs who put down their experiences and their research into Egyptian history, Ethiopian history, the origin of man, how the Greeks invaded Egypt and burnt down and destroyed the African civilization, and why, and then of course the Romans also took over and destroyed everything that was African and made it theirs. At the same time, we have the pyramids in Egypt, we have the University of Timbuktu, that the whole world must go back to and respect as, examples of the wisdom, the knowledge, the technology that Africans had, all these years. So why were we being told that Africa didn't have history? The big kingdoms, the Congo Empire, the Ghana Empire, the Songhai Empire, that were already civilized. So with these findings, then you come to note that if we all go back to know that we have a rich history, and that everything that we have learned has been lies, we've just been fed with lies in history books. Of course, we didn't write those history books. It is those who colonized us who wrote the books. So how do you expect those books to tell a favorable story about Africa? And that's why the African proverb, until lions
tell their own story.
The hunters will always say, hey, they are the best.
Yes.
So it's time that I thought we should now put our story down. What I did was I could have done twice the size of the book. But again, I looked at it, I said, wait a minute, this is going to an African child.
Yes.
It shouldn't be too big.
Yes.
Let him read this. Volume 2 will come.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So that is the motivation for the book, that we share our rich history from ancient civilization.
Yes, sir.
Through independence, through the struggles in Pan-Africanism, and also to tell the story that, listen, in spite of all that has happened to Africans, we are still very resilient.
Yes.
We still survive. See, it's a very important thing to know. I mean, I know that it's very difficult for some white people to accept that, the original human being was black.
Yeah.
So how come, that kind of thing. Or the original civilization in the world was an African. But that is the truth. And once that truth comes up, for our children to know their self-confidence will come back. You look into history and you realize that as if there was a program. Slavery was a program, colonialism was a program to make the African feel inferior, to make him feel he's a second-class citizen. No, I'm convinced that it is not the case. And that is the story I'm sharing with the African child. And
wow, this is this is awesome, guys. I'm truly excited. I'm holding myself not to leap off this chair, but we're going to come back. We're going to do a little bit of reading, a couple of lines, and Honorable Kojo Yankah is going to share with us what he feels about those lines and what the little girl Aisha, represent in the eye of the world. So see you soon. Don't move. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to our discussion. We're still here with Honorable Kojo Yankah, giving us a lot of knowledge. Before we left, we were talking about From Jamestown to Jamestown, Letter to an African Child. So this means from Jamestown, Ghana to Jamestown, Virginia in America. Am I right? Mm-hmm. All right. So I had the privilege to read this book. Actually, my copy is autographed, right? It's special. It's a special copy. Couple of things, struck me when I was reading it. One of the first things I would like to understand is why you sign the end of chapters by Efo Kojo.
Efo is a Ghanaian title for respect for an older person in one of the ethnic languages.
Okay.
And Kojo is a Monday born, so it's like an older person who is now signing letter to an African child.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. And the other thing that I wanted to understand is what does Aisha represent, or who does Aisha represent? Because when I look at, I saw Dear Aisha, I felt like I was Aisha, and do you have a representation, a specific representation for who Aisha?
Yeah, I chose Aisha. It's a Kiswahili word, also partly Arabic, but Aisha resonates on the continent in Africa, among the Hausas, among the Swahilis, among Arabs. It's also in the diaspora. Aisha resonates in the diaspora. But more important, Aisha means she who lives. So it's symbolic. It's that Aisha is represents the African who survived. Mm-hmm. So it is a very symbolic name that I chose to get to the youth of Africa.
Nice. So on page 29, you could see that it's marked. I could not help but mark it. It says, the educated Negroes have the attitude of contempt towards their own people, as well as in their mixed schools. Negroes are taught to admire the Hebrew, the Greek, the Latin, and the Teuton, and to despise the African. Can we speak about that?
Yeah, this was the observation by Carter Woodson in his book, The Miseducation of Negroes, which was very instructive. That is what's confirmed the belief that the way African Americans have been trained, they are trained even to hate themselves, to hate the African color, to hate Africans. And so it is something that he and others have been very concerned about. And I thought it was good to restate it in the book to show that it's not only Africans on the continent who have been miseducated, but African Americans and people in the diaspora have also been miseducated. And it was a good starting point to learn that if we recognize that we have been both miseducated, then we should take steps to go back and find out the truth about ourselves so that we can bridge the gap of understanding each other.
Yes, sir.
That is what it means.
And it says, it ends, but I love the ending of the paragraph. It said, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action.
Clearly. So that's what has happened over the past 400 years. The whole thing has been how to control the minds through education.
Yes, sir.
And we got it through the Bible, through a whole lot of books that people have written that we have been taught with, and we have accepted without question. So now is the time now to ask raising questions.
You've been in the U.S. now for a couple of weeks, and you're traveling to present the book. You do conferences. How do you feel the response is in all the places where you go?
It's incredible. It's incredible. People are hungry for information. I have lectured in a number of schools and institutions, and the response is incredible. And even teachers who teach the subject, the history, are relearning. And I keep telling them what you're doing is you unlearn and then you relearn. And that is the message going around. So it's been very well received, and I'm happy about that, because that was the whole idea. And people are asking me to come back to some of the institutions, and others are saying, is a second volume coming? And I keep saying, yes, a second volume is coming. So I'm happy that people are learning that, yes, we have been miseducated.
Do you think we'll have the chance to have this in the educational system in the continents too?
Oh, yes.
In Ghana, for example.
It's equally, when I launched it in Ghana, it was overcrowded. And as I'm speaking, I get a report that all the copies are gone. So we need to reprint in Ghana. And this is just Ghana. We haven't gone to other African countries.
Yes.
So, yes, I'm happy that it's been received well. All the reviews that I have read are all positive. And it shows that the awareness is rising.
Where do you get the energy to do all these things?
Well, it's faith in what I'm doing. I believe that what I'm doing is right.
What's the balance? Because
well,
I believe I believe
I have time to rest. I have time to think. I have time to take a walk. I have time to.
Is there a specific thing that you do to rejuvenate and
Nothing specific. I'm always positive-minded. That I think that the African shall rise. Listen, there are a lot of things that we have that we have not given thought to. But when I told a medical officer here that I drink moringa, he said, "What's that?" I said, "Moringa is a herbal plant in Africa. And I drink a moringa tea every morning." And he wanted to know, he had to quickly check Google on his phone to find out what moringa is. The other message that I give, even part of the book tells, is that we need to really look at how we've been taken care of in the past with all the chemicals that have been thrown at us, to the neglect of our herbal background that we have. All around our houses in Africa, there are herbal plants. We have ignored them because we went to school. Now we find that they are very useful. And I drink cocoa. This morning I drank a cup of cocoa for our interview because it comes from Africa. It rejuvenates me.
Yes, sir.
And again, I am always rejuvenated by talking to the youth.
Yes.
It's exciting. And of course, my passion is just to continue to write.
Wow.
So I read and write. I read and I keep writing. And I believe that if we continue to share our stories, our youth will be different.
Yes.
Their attitude towards the world will be different. And I'm happy I'm making a contribution towards it.
This is I'm just overwhelmed, and I think that's something that we should have mentorship. We should have people like you, have younger Africans sit down at your feet and learn, because the way I feel, I would love a lot of young Africans and a lot of young non-Africans to feel the same way, while getting the knowledge. Do you watch any sports whatsoever?
Oh, I like soccer.
Okay. Do you have any favorite player?
I love the best African players.
Okay.
I used to love Cameroonian players, but they all fell out.
Yes.
And then they were replaced by some Ghanaian players who are also gradually falling out.
Yeah.
There are good players in South Africa, good players in Nigeria, but this Liverpool guy from Egypt, Salah's making Africa very proud. Yeah. So I like watching them.
Nice. And do you have any favorite music you listen to?
Music, see, I don't have any particular music, but I like the original music of the Senegalese. Yes, I like high life in Ghana, but now it's been neutralized by sounds that the lyrics are not there. But I like the liberation music of Bob Marley, and I will listen to him anytime. But I normally like, because I'm a communicator, I want to know what is he saying in the song. Is it liberating enough? And that is what I am looking at. So I like liberating music.
And I value your ethical leadership. And I'm thinking maybe since I know that you've not stopped writing and you're not going to stop writing anytime soon, I look forward to seeing a book on ethical leadership with a lot of examples of what we have now in Africa and what we've had as great leaders. So that's just my, on a personal level, because everything that I've seen so far with you and all the great things that you've done, I feel like you have a strong foundation of ethical leadership and belief of the continent that we all are from, and of Ghana in particular. So I think the young people will be very appreciative if we have a guide. I will not call it a book, a guide of ethical leadership, so that when we come back to settle, we do not forget that we've learned good leadership and that we can implement it, in the continent to make the continent a better place. Is there anything that I've omitted to ask or to bring up in this interview?
Oh, well, you were calling the shots, so I don't even know what you left out. But the point I want to make is that Africans should learn to read more. We are not reading. The youth are not reading. Social media is good, but on the same social media, you can read. But we are not reading. A lot of our time is spent on frivolous things. Social media is a tool, but you can also use it to learn a lot, and we are not doing it. So our mind is not liberating itself as fast as it should. So I believe that all these writings that we are doing, yes, there are electronic versions. There are also audio versions that people can listen to when driving. But Africans should make a conscious effort to read about themselves, about the new researches that have come out. Technology is only a tool, but the knowledge you have is something that will give you the confidence. And if we are to get back our confidence, we should be hungry for more knowledge, for more information about our past and how we will also use the same technology to move ourselves forward and also move our continent also forward.
And that brings me to our last question, which is our hope for a more united Africa. Do you see that happening pretty soon?
I think it's going to happen. You see, there are a lot of people who are cynical. But the point is that, yes, people say, oh, but with all these corrupt leaders and so on and selfish, but I'm saying that the hope is in the youth. You see, the youth are going to be so angry. Already they are angry. Because of this kind of corruption and bad leadership, there's so much unemployment, there's so much desperation. And when these youth are angry, anything can happen. And I know it will get there because we are not going to cover our faces with so-called democracy and say, oh, because we have, this and that, you cannot. No. Some leaders are using constitutions and democracy to cover their corruption. I believe that the youth of Africa will define the way forward. I don't know how, but I believe that they will be very angry and they will continue to be angry. And with social network, they will tie their fortunes together and build a better Africa, a united and better Africa. I believe in it.
Wow. I don't know if I should thank you, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the greatness, that you instill in us and the self-confidence that you instill in us when we see you doing what you're doing. Thank you for taking time out again, for being here with us and for everything that you do, because wherever you're going to do these conferences and these lectures, you're representing the whole continent. Wherever you bring out stuff like this is a representation of. I've made it. I read a couple of pages with a couple of my students, and it was a very, not only emotional, but it was like an eye-opening moment. So I don't want to see when they're going to read the whole thing, what will happen. But I just want to thank you again for this time, and I'm sure that we'll be sitting down together, maybe, who knows, in Ghana, under a mango tree and having another discussion.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Wow, it was an emotional but a very enriching moment sitting down with Honorable Kojo Yankah, and I hope you guys had fun. I hope you enjoy yourself. I hope you learn, because we're here not only to entertain you but to educate you, and as he said, relearn to unlearn. I hope a lot of that happening today. So I want to thank you for being with us today, and I look forward to seeing you in our next discussion. Have a great day. Bye.